This is Bessie. Bessie came from Gilberta's first litter last year. Bessie probably weighs 300 pounds, 325 pounds. She's a nice sized girl. I'll tell you that mat right there that she was just messing with, that mat probably weighs 50 pounds. It's one of those thick rubber mats that comes from Tractor Supply that you put in trailers so livestock won't slip. They play with it like it's a toy. I use it under their water when I have to water them in this pen so they don't slip on the concrete. But they throw it around, big girls. Those three pigs over there, the one on the far end that just wagged her tail, that's Dabo. And she and Bessie are probably going off to have summer camp with a boar hog here in the next few weeks. These other two pigs closest to me, they are more likely than not going to freezer camp here in the next month or two, once they get a little bit more weight on them and the processor gets caught up. Now those feeders, those are one-sided finishing feeders from Hog Slats, which is based in Newton Grove, North Carolina. I grew up on a topping floor operation and we used mostly, if not all, Hog Slat products. Great products, sturdy, they're well made, the design is really nice actually. And I special ordered them because they're one-sided feeders, you don't get a lot of call for those, but Hog Slat makes them. And those feeders are very, very reasonable price-wise, and I don't know if you can tell, but I use the brackets that Hog Slats normally uses on the ends. And I just built some homemade lids for them because they don't come with lids. That keeps the raccoons and all kinds of squirrels and stuff out of them so the hogs can have a feed. But they work great. And I've got their corral here. It's reinforced and they come up here to eat. And then they've got a little bit bigger corral if I need to shut them up to keep them outside. And then I'm going to move over here and show you. This is their pasture, which is pretty barren right now because the grass ain't come up this spring, and that's their watering station right there with the gray tin roof on it. There's a nipple drinker that they use in commercial topping floor operations, but I've adapted it for use out here, and it's also manufactured by Hog Slat. It's a really, really nice adaptation of a confined space device used for pasture operation. Keeps the water clean, keeps all the bugs and nasty stuff out of water troughs that, you know, if people have water troughs, they get nasty and get bugs and parasites and all kinds of stuff in them. But doing it this way, the water stays inside a tube and it's protected and you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But they have cool water. It's piped underground to the pasture. Then I run it up under the shelter. Works great. And they seem to like it. Gives them something to kind of play with and do. Don't just stick their head in the trough. But then they've got about 2.5, 3 acres of pine trees and hardwoods and all kinds of stuff to play in and hang out in. And on the back side of that little hill there's a lot of nice mud holes that they've made for themselves. And they just kind of come and go and do what they want. As you can see, they waller in the mud and eat grass and gnaw on bark and all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty neat the way they have adapted to the environment. Good-natured pigs. And if you interact with them on a regular basis, any pigs I think will be that way. 9 times out of 10, they'll let me come right up to them and pet them or scratch them behind the ear or whatnot, which makes life a lot easier when it's time to load them if you're moving them to another farm or if you're, oh, she had to go to the bathroom, sorry about that. If you had to move them to another farm or if you have to, you know, move them to the processor. So, yeah, so set up. And some of you may wonder what that red thing is hanging out from under the water shelter. That's a horse apple, one of those big plastic apples that horses like to play with. And they like to use it as a tether ball. And sometimes you'll catch them, if the timing is just right, you'll catch them out here and they will be knocking that thing back and forth. There's Dabo getting some water out of the nipple. And she just sits there and she bites down on that little tab that's coming out and the water squirts out and it's nice and cool and clean and they don't have to worry about getting worms and parasites in their system. Now for worms and parasites, I normally put some diatomaceous earth in their feed. I will give them a dewormer once a year if they're breeding stock. If they're going to the processor after 6-7 months of being out here in the pasture and feeding, then normally I just give them a dewormer when they're born, and then I'll leave them be. And the diatomaceous earth normally takes care of everything else in their system. And they drink a lot of water. and that's another thing. In the wintertime, I can't use these because they freeze up. So I have to use tubs, which is not that bad because the mosquitoes are all gone and flies are gone for the winter, so it doesn't get dirty as much. But you know, a 50-gallon tub, they'll drink 5-10 gallons out of it a day, easy, even in the cold months. And so I set that up in a certain way and let them do it. But yeah, they're pretty good, pretty easy to get along with, ridiculously smart. So you have to be a little bit ahead of them. So anyway, there's a little building I built them this winter. They hung out under that all winter long, kept them out of the snow and the ice and the wind and everything, and they wallered it out under there, so they got it like they wanted it. All right, more to come later.